Most people think choosing between Surrey and Langley comes down to price. That's exactly why so many of them end up in the wrong city.
I had a couple come to me a few months back, solid budget, young family, ready to move. They'd done their research, driven both areas, and they were convinced that they had figured it out, but they didn't. And the mistakes that they were about to make are the same ones I see play out over and over again with buyers who think they're asking the right questions, but they aren't.
Because here's the thing, Surrey and Langley are not interchangeable. They look different, they feel different, and depending on who you are and what your life actually looks like, they will affect you very differently. And most buyers don't figure that out until they've already signed for their new property. So in this video, we're covering the 5 biggest mistakes people make when choosing between the two cities. Not the surface level stuff you've already Googled. The things that actually matter when you're putting down roots, raising a family, or making one of the biggest financial decisions of your life.
Only get one chance to buy or sell your next home. Let's get it right.
Before we kick off, if you're thinking about buying or selling in White Rock or South Surrey, the biggest mistake you can make right now is relying on outdated advice or guessing your next move. The market is constantly shifting, and what worked even 6 months ago could cost you tens of thousands today. My name is Darren. I'm a real estate professional living and working here in White Rock and South Surrey, and I've been helping families just like yours buy and sell since 2007. Since then, I've worked with hundreds of clients, many of whom have found me right here on this very YouTube channel because they wanted straight answers, real local insight, and a strategy that actually works. On this channel, I break down exactly what's happening in our market, what to watch out for, and how to make smart decisions so you don't leave any money on the table. So if you want to stay ahead of the market, hit subscribe. And if you're serious about making a move, there's a link below to book a quick call with me or my team. No pressure, just clear advice so you can move forward with confidence. Mistake number 1, choosing based on price instead of investment. On the surface, this one seems pretty straightforward, right? Surrey is cheaper, Langley costs a little bit more. Well, done, right? But that's exactly where buyers go wrong because the numbers tell a much more interesting story than that. Right now, as the time of filming this, the average detached home in Langley sits in around $1,526,000. Surrey comes in slightly lower at about $1,461,000. So yes, Surrey is more affordable on average, but the average is hiding a lot of that conversation because Surrey is an enormous municipality and an incredibly diverse city. You've got South Surrey as an example, averaging $1,740,000, and then West Newton sitting at $1,230,000. Same city, but completely different markets. So when someone tells you Surrey is cheaper, you have to ask which part of Surrey.
But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part most buyers never see coming. If you look at property value growth since 2016, Langley has outperformed Surrey by a significant margin. Surrey grew 82.6% over that period. Langley grew 103.5%. So the city that costs a little more has also grown a lot more. And that's not a coincidence. That's a market signal that's worth paying attention to.
Now, and this is the counterintuitive part, both markets in early 2022 peaked and have corrected since then. And this isn't unique to Surrey and Langley. This is all over the lower mainland. In fact, most of Canada, in fact, most of North America, in fact, most of the world. But since that peak, Langley is currently down 7.7% year over year. Surrey is down 9.8%. So Surrey is actually losing value slightly faster right now. If you went into this video thinking Surrey was the safer financial bet, that number might surprise you. So who wins on investment? Well, based on the long-term trajectory, Langley has the edge. But the smarter question isn't Surrey or Langley, it's which neighborhood and what does the next 10 years look like there? And that's something we're sitting down and actually mapping out before you buy. Mistake number 2, underestimating how much location actually affects your daily life. This one sounds obvious until you're living it. We all love the idea that we'll just stay local, build community, and never really need to leave. And maybe that's true on weekends. But your life, your job, your family, your appointments, your commitments, they don't always cooperate with that plan. So let's talk about geography a little bit. Surrey sits right in the middle of Metro Vancouver. It borders Burnaby, Delta, Langley, and White Rock. It is genuinely central in the Lower Mainland. And if you work in Vancouver, commute to Burnaby, or spend time anywhere across Lower Mainland, Surrey puts you in a reasonable position to get there. And the transit infrastructure backs that up. Surrey already has a robust SkyTrain network and more stops coming along the way. Now, Langley, it's a little bit different. It sits on the eastern edge of Metro Vancouver, and that matters more than people think when they're shopping for homes. If downtown Vancouver is part of your regular life, whether that's for work, culture, or just where your people are, Langley adds real time to that commute. It's not a deal breaker, but if it's a daily reality for you, you need to factor that in. That said, Langley has its own geographical advantage that buyers absolutely love when they choose to call that place home. You want to get out of the city, into the mountains, out to the valley. Well, Langley gets you there faster, and that's not an accident. Langley attracts a specific kind of buyer, someone who wants space, a larger property maybe, an outdoor lifestyle, and a slower pace, something we're going to touch on a little bit later. For that person, being on the edge of Metro Vancouver isn't a downside. It's exactly the point. Here's the bigger picture though. Surrey is on track to surpass Vancouver in population before the end of this decade. The infrastructure, the density, the development, it's all pointing upwards for a city that is becoming more self-contained each and every year. The idea that you'll never need to leave Surrey is still a stretch today, but it's becoming less of one each and every year. So who wins here? Well, it entirely depends on how you live. If your life pulls you west towards Vancouver regularly, Surrey is the practical choice. If your life pulls you east towards nature, space, and a quieter pace, Langley makes a lot more sense. The mistake isn't choosing one over the other, it's not being honest with yourself about which one your actual life requires. Mistake number 3. Hey, before we get into that, a quick heads up. If you're even thinking about buying a home anywhere in BC, you're gonna wanna grab a copy of our free guide, 18 grants and rebates for home buyers. We pulled together every program we could find, federal, provincial, and even some lesser known local ones, plus links, tips, and simple ways to actually use them. Most of these are buried, confusing, or completely missed by buyers, and this could save you thousands. It's free, and you can download it right now using the link in the description of this video. Mistake number 3, assuming both cities are equal when it comes to schools.
Education is one of the top 3 reasons that families choose where to live, and yet most buyers do almost no research on this. They just assume schools are roughly the same across the Lower Mainland and move on, and that's a mistake.
The Fraser Institute publishes an annual school ranking across BC. They measure things like exam results, how well schools improve student performance over time, and how consistently they deliver results year over year. Now, I want to acknowledge, it's not a perfect system, but it is the most widely used independent benchmark that we do have, and it gives you a real data point to work with instead of just vibes. So let's look at what the numbers actually say. When you look at the top 30 elementary schools in all of BC, Surrey has 5 schools on that list. Langley, well, they have 0. The first Langley school appears at rank number 31. Now, all 5 of Surrey's top 30 schools are private. Southridge, Kelsa schools, and a handful of other in the South Surrey and Cloverdale areas. So if private school is part of your plan, Surrey has some of the best options in the entire province right in its backyard. But what about public schools, for the rest of us? Because that's what most families are actually working with. If you filter for only public schools and look in the top 250 in BC, Surrey has 10 public elementary schools that make the list. Langley has 3. And that's not a slight against Langley. Those schools are good, but the depth and volume of strong public options in Surrey is meaningfully greater. I also want to touch a little bit and be transparent about one thing. BC secondary school rankings through the Fraser Institute are currently based on older data because the province changed its high school testing program, and the Fraser Institute paused those rankings as a result. So for high school comparisons, you want to do your own neighborhood level research and talk to local parents. That's generally the best source right now. So who wins on schools? Surrey, and it's not particularly close at the elementary level. If school quality is a deciding factor for your family, that needs to be part of the conversation, not an afterthought. Mistake number 4. Not thinking about what kind of city you actually want to live in. This one isn't about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about lifestyle. And it's something buyers almost never ask themselves before they start shopping. To frame this conversation a little bit better, let's start with something most buyers have never heard of: the agricultural land reserve. Take a look at this map. See all that green? That land is legally protected for agricultural use only. It cannot be developed, it cannot be rezoned, and it is not going anywhere. The province created this zone in 1973 specifically to protect BC's limited supply of farmable land, and getting land removed from it is rare and politically contentious. Now, here's why this matters for your decision. Roughly 3/4 of Langley's entire land base sits inside the ALR. 3/4. That means the vast majority of the township simply cannot grow. Development gets funneled into the areas that are already built, which is exactly why neighborhoods like Willoughby exploded the way they did. There was nowhere else to put that development. Now, Surrey, by comparison, has about 1/3 of its land in the ALR, and its major urban centers, Newton, Whalley, Fleetwood, Guildford, many areas of South Surrey, well, those are largely free of those ALR restrictions. That's why Surrey has been able to densify aggressively and keep building at scale. So what does that actually mean for you as a buyer? If you buy near ALR land in Langley, your view and your low density feel may be protected for a very long time. That can be a genuine lifestyle advantage. But if you're buying an acreage hoping it gets rezoned down the road, that is an extremely risky bet and one I would caution anyone against making. Now, let's put the size difference in perspective here a little bit as well. Surrey's population right now is estimated to be sitting in and around about 730,000 people. Langley, combining the township and the city together, it's estimated that as of early 2026 that they both sit around a combined number of about 200,000. And by 2050, under Metro Vancouver's own medium growth projections, Surrey is expected to approach 960,000 people. Langley combined gets to about 284,000. Surrey isn't just bigger, it's on a trajectory to become one of the largest cities in Western Canada. If you choose Surrey, you're choosing a city in motion, more density, more development, more infrastructure, more amenities arriving every year. Growth that is accelerating and not slowing down. If you choose Langley, you're choosing something that's fundamentally different, smaller, greener, slower, and by design because the land won't allow it to be anything else. So who wins here? Well, neither. This is the most personal mistake on the list. The mistake is buying in the wrong area and spending the next decade wishing you'd been more honest with yourself up front. Mistake number 5, assuming the city headline tells you everything you need to know about safety. This is the one that gets people the most fired up. And I'm going to be straight with you because sugarcoating this one doesn't serve anybody. Surrey has a reputation. You've heard it, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend that it doesn't exist. But what most buyers don't do is actually pull that reputation apart and look at what's driving it. More importantly, whether it applies to the specific neighborhood they're actually considering. Let's start with policing. Surrey recently made a major transition away from the RCMP to its own municipal police force, the Surrey Police Service. The idea behind it makes a lot of sense. A city of over 700,000 people arguably needs a force that answers locally, not to Ottawa. Here's the long view though. A municipal police force builds deep neighborhood roots over time in a way that rotating RCMP postings simply can. If the Surrey Police Service manufactures the way advocates believe it will, it can become a genuine asset for the city. Right now, we're still kind of in the early innings of that story. Now, alternatively, Langley runs on standard RCMP contract policing. No controversy, no transition, no headlines. And federal cost sharing keeps policing costs lower, which means less pressure on the municipal budget and on property taxes. Langley Township genuinely also has lower crime rates across most categories compared to Surrey's urban core. The perception of safety is consistently stronger, and for family buyers especially, that perception matters enormously. But here's what I want you to take away from this, and this applies to both cities. Langley is not one uniform experience. Langley City's downtown core has visible social disorder issues that buyers often overlook because they lump it in with the township's image. There are two separate municipalities with two very different street level realities. And on the other side, semi-rural areas in the township deal with real property crime, vehicle theft, farm equipment, rural break-ins that dense suburban Surrey doesn't maybe face in the same way. Surrey, now they have their own story. The gap between South Surrey and parts of Whalley, as an example, is enormous. Treating either sub-area of the city as one uniform safety experience is a mistake. Neighborhoods matter more than the municipal headlines will every single time. So when it comes to safety, who wins? Well, Langley wins on stability and perception right now. Surrey is a longer term bet. But the biggest mistake you can make is letting a city's overall reputation push you away from a neighborhood that might be absolutely perfect for your family or pull you towards one that isn't. So there you have it. 5 mistakes, 2 cities, and hopefully a much clearer picture of what you're actually choosing between. Here's the honest truth. There is no universally right answer between Surrey and Langley. What there is a right answer for you based on how you live, what your family needs, where your life actually is headed, and what kind of city energy you want to wake up to every single day. And the buyers who get this decision right are the ones who stop comparing headlines and start comparing realities. If you found this useful, this information useful, this is exactly what we do on this channel. Every week we break down Surrey, White Rock, and BC real estate news in a way that actually helps you make smarter decisions, whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to figure out where you belong in this province. And if you're leaning towards Surrey after watching this, you're gonna wanna see the video coming up next because we're covering the worst of the worst, the reasons people leave Surrey every day for other parts of the province. If you're curious, what gets them all hot and bothered? The good news is that video, it's coming up right now. You're wondering what could be the worst part about living in Surrey, British Columbia. This video is exactly to teach you that.